Hi guys. So today's video is going to be a book review and a spoiler chat of the book Kiss of Deception by Mary E. Pearson. This book follows a girl named Leah, and when we first meet her, she is about to be married off to someone who she has never met to fulfill a political alliance, and she decides that she is going to run away and escape this fate. Upon running away, Leah is hunted down by two other individuals that are also main perspectives, one being an assassin sent to kill her and one being the man that she was supposed to marry. The way the book is set up, you don't actually know which of the perspectives is which, so you kind of have to guess which one you think is the assassin and which one you think is the prince. I thought this was a really interesting approach and intriguing thing for the author to do and to pull off. I was expecting it to be a little bit cheesy or so mysterious that you wouldn't have any distinction between the characters, and that is one thing that in the beginning of the story I personally felt about the two male characters, is I didn't see much of a difference between the two of them. But as the story goes on and as you learn who is who, you definitely will get more of a distinction between them. It just doesn't start out that way given the setup. Leah, though, who is more arguably the main perspective, does have a good dose of a personality. She is not somebody who is so bland that anybody can imagine themselves as. She has her own personality, and I personally found that she is very young in this story, but while sometimes she is foolish or maybe focusing on herself a little bit, you can kind of understand given her circumstances. Also, just within this first book, you see her growing as a character, which I always appreciate in stories. So even if you don't love her to begin with, or maybe you don't really like her by the end, you are still going to see her growing and maturing as a character. There is another character named Pauline who, while she's not exactly a main character, she is a significant part of Leah's life, and she is a fantastic friend. Oh my gosh, she is one of the best friends I have seen in a story. I don't know how the relationships between all the various characters is going to play out throughout the rest of the series, but within this first book, I thought the friendship between Leah and Pauline was fantastic. If you've heard other people talk about this book before, or just maybe have guessed it based off of the premise, you might kind of have an idea that people often speak of this book as having a love triangle, and I know love triangles have kind of been done to death. Nobody likes them, it seems, and it's a trope at this point that comes off as a cliche, because tropes aren't inherently bad, but cliches, the idea is it's a trope done poorly. And in this book, I personally didn't love the romantic elements of the story, but I didn't think that they necessarily took over the entirety of the plot. I still thought there was enough other things going on that it wasn't a huge distraction to me. There are going to be times throughout the story when the romance is more prevalent, and there are going to be times throughout the story where the political intrigue is more prevalent, or there are dire circumstances that our characters have to face. And so there was enough of other things going on that I didn't feel the romantic elements took over the plot. No matter whose perspective you're in, the entire narration is always in first person, and because it's the characters telling you what's happening, it's not really very dense. It's very easy to get into, and the world is close enough to our own that you don't have to wrap your head around this fascinating, crazy world building or anything like that. There is enough world building where it's interesting and you are kind of slowly getting to know the world as you read more about it. And I think there is a good amount of it given that it's a YA book, and that's something I see sometimes lacking in YA books. That said, I am going to start getting into spoilers now, so if you haven't actually picked this up, you probably don't want to keep watching, but if you have picked it up, I'm gonna get into stuff. Okay, first off, I did enjoy this book. I enjoyed basically everything about this book except for the romantic stuff. And not because I don't usually like romance in books. I don't actually hate romance in books. I just don't usually find the romance to be something that is second to the plot. I find a lot of times the romance takes over the plot, and that's what I don't like, because I like fantasy for the fantastical elements. If I want to read basically a love story, I'll pick up kind of a romantic contemporary book or something, but I really like getting to know new worlds, and I like getting to know politics and all of that cool stuff. And I actually think the moments that those things happen, that's where this book shines. And all the hints of the things that you would get from the various other kingdoms, like Caden and all of his people being considered barbarians, but oh, I guess secret's up, they might not actually be barbarians, all that kind of stuff, I thought was really fantastic. I didn't like, though, just purely Leah and Rafe's relationship. I didn't like it. It developed really, really quickly, and it was kind of shallow because what did they even know about each other? They didn't know much. It was just that they were into each other, which that's fine, but it went from them being into each other to them being head over heels in love, and I don't like that. I think, though, that that's partially because I just didn't like Rafe really as a character. Maybe I'll feel differently toward him in the future books, but I don't know. I thought him and Caden were kind of creepers. I don't know. I didn't really like either of them in this book. I didn't love Leah all of the time, but I did like Leah significantly more than I liked Rafe and Caden. And any annoyances I had with Leah primarily were just due to the fact that she's so young and everything is so new to her, but I would forget that sometimes because she is experiencing things that so often people who are older experience. So she's kind of coming into her own. She's trying to get on her own 2 feet, which is something that I find is very true of people who are just finishing college or something, but she's only 17, and so everything is pretty fresh and new to her, plus she literally is coming into a completely new environment, going from having royalty to not royalty, so she's having to work for everything and she's not used to that, and she's just inexperienced at being a normal person. But there were a few examples of things that Leah did, or emotions that she had, reactions to things that I really appreciated about her character. One was when her brother first told her that he was going to be a father, and she realized that she would never probably get to know her niece or nephew, and while that made her sad, seeing how happy it made her brother made her happy, which I thought was a really cool element of her personality, because she could have very easily seen how happy he was and then just gotten even more upset and even sadder, but instead she saw his happiness, and because she loved him, she was happy for him, and I really liked that about her. I also think, while Pauline is the best friend ever, oh my gosh, is she an amazing friend, she also had a good friend in Leah. Leah was very understanding when Pauline was kind of bitter about Mikkel. I thought that Leah let her have her space, and she didn't hold it against her, which happens so often in stories where somebody gets upset and maybe short-tempered because of something really tragic that happens, and then the other person gets really offended by it, and that's silly because they have to understand that it's not that person's genuine self. It's their personality has been tweaked because of something really life-altering, and that was the case with her friend, and Leah recognized that, and she didn't hold it against her, which I really loved that in their friendship. Pauline, though, I think that girl wins for being the best friend character ever. I don't know if things are going to change in the future books when she finds out that Leah lied about Mikkel, but within this first book, she was an amazing friend. She sacrificed this love that she had with somebody who she thought deeply loved her. She was willing to sacrifice that because she had no idea if Mikkel would ever find her again, and then go with her friend to help her friend escape having to marry somebody she doesn't know and be caught up in this foreign land and these politics and everything. She was willing to give everything in her own life up so that she could help her friend, and I thought that was amazing. Then when Leah decides she's gonna go back, then Pauline's like, I'm going with you, while she's pregnant. It's like the best friend ever, to the point of, girl, take some time for yourself, my goodness. I am very curious to see how Pauline plays into the future books, because toward the end of the book, we finally got one of Pauline's perspectives, and the whole time we hadn't had any of her perspectives, so I'm very interested to see what happens with her. As far as other people involved in Leah's life, her brother Walter. Oh man. So first off, Walter's wife and unborn child die, and I was kind of caught by surprise with that part. I wasn't necessarily expecting that to happen. And then he dies later, and I was thinking, what the heck? Because Leah finally escapes, and she goes off into the jungle, and then there's monkeys or apes or something, and then there's the tiger, and she gets away from them, possibly with the gift, and then she has escaped Caden and his merry band of misfits, and then she witnesses her brother get slaughtered, and I was like, what the heck? All of that, all of her escaping and everything, so that she could see her brother die. It was really sad, and I think part of it was My guess, this is my prediction, for those of you who have read the books, you'll probably be like, ha ha ha, you know nothing. But I think the gift was pushing her toward that, because then she had this really amazing moment where even though she knew she couldn't do it, she was going to do everything in her power to bury the dead and respect and honor them. And it so heavily impacted the barbarians that even though they aren't supposed to bury their enemies, they just happened to dig holes. They kind of tweaked their line of thinking because they were so moved by her. And I think she's gonna play a huge role in bridging the gap between the barbarians and her own kingdom. I also really loved that moment when Even's horse, which that was really sad how Even has nobody but he loves his horse, and it was injured, and they were all telling it, oh, go kill it, boy, go kill it. And she was like, he's a child. You guys are really gonna make him slaughter his horse, the only thing he has, and she kills the horse for him. That was awesome. Also, before that, when she was stuck in the jungle and she ate the maggots or whatever they were, that part, I was like, ugh, I would just die. Like, that's so gross. I shouldn't say that. I have no idea what that situation would be like, but that's the kind of moment with Leah that you can really see her potential, her willingness to do anything she can to survive and to try and aid others. She has a resilience in her that I really appreciated and thought was really amazing and fantastic, and I feel like I would have starved to death. I can't wait to see where the next book goes. I've heard really good things about the next two books. I've heard they're way better, infinitely better than this first one, and I enjoyed this first one. I still didn't love the romantic elements of it, and not just because I usually don't like romantic elements, but I actually feel they're one of the least developed things in this story, but everything else really pulled me in, and there were times that I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this, and then something kind of extreme would happen. It would pull me back in, and I would think, whoa, wasn't expecting that. This book can seem to either be a favorite of people's or really down low for other people, so let me know your thoughts on it. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you later. Bye.